Hey everyone, so I'm here to talk about a cycle. What kind of a cycle? A water cycle. Not just your ordinary bicycle or something like that, but water, as we know, also moves around, like let's say in the environment in the form of a cycle. So let me explain to you how the water cycle is and what happens during the cycling process of water. So the first starting point would be whenever we look up, we see the clouds. So we can start from the clouds. So clouds are very interesting things because they can have different shapes and they can move around freely. So they can be of different states, like they can have different colors. So let's start the cycle from the clouds. So as I said before, the clouds could be of different shapes and sizes, and that also matters for the water cycle. So starting from the clouds, when the clouds get darker and more bulkier and heavier, we know that it's about to rain or there might be a storm on the way. So when the clouds get that heavy and dark, then comes the rain, which is the other part of the water cycle. So the water that's stored in the clouds usually come down to the surface of the earth in the form of rain, or it can also come in the form of snow. So once the rain comes to the earth's surface, part of the rain can enter the rivers, oceans, that is the surface waters on the earth, and also a smaller portion of it goes underground and it is stored as groundwater. So this portion can be around 20% or even less or more. So the groundwater is usually retained for a much longer time, and the surface water usually what ends up in rivers gradually flows into the oceans, and then also a part of it ends up in lakes, ponds, and other surface water sources. So once these surface water sources are formed by rain, and also when snow falls on mountains, we know that there are snow caps as well as glaciers can form. And so these are all forms of, you can call them storage of water. So these are kind of the sources of water that's available on the Earth's surface. So as I said before, groundwater can be a much long-lasting source of water compared to rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans, because once the water actually seeps into the ground, it remains there for a much longer time. And so once the water is on the surface of the earth, the next thing that's activated is the sun. We know that sun is hot, warm, and it emits radiation. So the solar radiation helps the water on the surface of the earth to actually evaporate from its liquid form into a gaseous form, and then it rises up and it's in the air around us. So the sun's energy picks up the water from the water surfaces and takes up into the atmosphere. So once this air rises up, and then it gets heavier, and these what you can say water vapor tends to find dust particles and other smaller particles in the atmosphere. They tend to stick to them. So when these water vapor stick to those dust particles, that's how the clouds are formed. So I think the cycle is complete, where we started from the clouds, came all the way onto the earth, and even went underground. And then from the earth's surface, water surfaces, it goes back up as evaporation. And there's another part which is like the plants or the vegetation participates, because the plants can also absorb water from the ground, which is available as groundwater, and then the water moves through the plants, and also the plant can release the water that's in it outside. So the solar radiation, the heat, also helps in the plant's release of water, and this we call as transpiration. So both evaporation and transpiration helps the water on the surface of the earth to go back into the atmosphere, completing the water cycle.